Viking raiders. Vikings were pirates from the countries known today as Norway, Denmark and Sweden. You can read more about them in Chapter 8. The first recorded Viking raid on Wessex came in 789 AD, almost 100 years before Alfred became king. At that time, 3 ships arrived on the beach at Dorchester, and Vikings leapt out and killed the Saxon royal official who went to meet him. Soon afterwards, Viking raids were reported from northern Saxon kingdoms and from lands ruled by Irish, Scots and Britons. Viking raiders came in search of loot, anything valuable that they could carry away. Some of their main targets were churches and monasteries, which were often the largest and best buildings in any community. They also contained rich treasures which had been given to the church by Christian believers. Vikings knew nothing about Christian beliefs. The raiders did not understand that attacks on holy buildings caused enormous offense to Christians, as well as anger and sorrow. Vikings looted and set fire to the great Northumbrian monastery at Lindisfarne in 793 AD. And raided Iona, see page 57, and Ireland the next year, robbing churches as they went, as well as wrecking churches and monasteries. Raiders also caused hardship in the countryside by destroying houses, stealing food, crops and livestock, killing farm workers and looting towns. News of the Viking raids spread throughout Europe, causing horror and shock. An Irish chronicle reported, if 100 heads of iron could grow on one neck, and if each head possessed 100 sharp indestructible tongues, and if each tongue cried out incessantly with 100 IOUD voices, they would never be able to count the griefs which the people of Ireland have suffered at the hands of these warlike, ruthless pagans. But the separate kingdoms of the British Isles were still rivals. They had no way of working together to defend their lands, and a few Irish and Saxon kings were friendly with groups of Vikings. They even invited Vikings to the British Isles to help fight rivals or defend their lands. Each kingdom fought off the Vikings as well as it could, but Saxon, British, Irish and Scots armies could not possibly defend the whole British coastline. Viking raids were swift, sudden, unpredictable and savage. Sometimes it seemed as if the only hope of safety came from bad weather, as one monk wrote, "Thankfully, the wind and waves are wild tonight. I shall not fear the fierce Vikings." The Great Army. The Great Army. Until around 850 AD, most Vikings came as small groups of raiders grabbing what they could, then sailing away. Later the tactics changed. In 865 AD, as we saw on page 74, Viking war bands joined together and attempted as a great army. Unlike earlier raiders, these Vikings came to stay, at first for a short while, then forever. We do not know for sure how big the army was, but it probably consisted of hundreds or even thousands of men. It was made up of lords and the followers from several different Viking lands. They all had one aim: to conquer the British Isles. A Viking army was a formidable force. Viking warriors were strong, well-trained and well-armed, and fiercely loyal to their leaders. Viking commanders sent warriors in fast warships to attack coasts and sail inland along rivers. The warships carried horses as well, so that the warriors could ride quickly towards important targets. The Great Army set up camp in Kent and stayed there over the winter of 865 to 866 AD, ready to move further inland in the spring. In the next 3 years, it conquered East Anglia and Northumbria and sacrificed the Saxon kings there, Edmund and Niall, to the Viking war god Odin. In the summer of 870 AD, a second army of Vikings arrived and marched into Wessex. Alfred was not yet king. His fourth brother Ethelred was ruler. Together Ethelred, Alfred and their men fought furiously against the invaders. They won a few battles. the most important being at Ashdau early in 871 AD, when Alfred led his men very bravely. But the fighting continued and the Vikings proved stronger. Ethelred was killed in April, and Alfred became king of Wessex aged just 21. The next year, there was a rebellion against Viking conquerors in Northumbria. This gave Alfred valuable breathing space as the Viking armies were kept busy in the north. He also paid the Vikings to stay away from Wessex, for a while at least, from 873 AD to 875 AD. The Vikings attacked and took control of Mercia. After this, Alfred's Wessex was the only large Saxon kingdom still unconquered by Viking armies. For the next 2 years, Viking armies attacked from the sea along the south coast of Wessex, and advanced westwards inland.